in June because of the Stonewall Inn. And many people talk of it as the beginning of the movement for LGBTQ equality. But it really wasn't the beginning, it was an inflection point. It was a moment that began to mark not just the pushback against police brutality, but a new envisioning of what America could be for the LGBTQ community. And this week, we have seen some remarkable change. We saw a Supreme Court decision, a 6-3 decision by a conservative Supreme Court that said that discrimination against people based on their sexual orientation and gender identity was in fact sex discrimination and therefore illegal in America. And as we celebrate that victory, we have to be mindful of the fact that it was based on the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And we have to pay homage to those who sacrificed and fought to pass that incredible piece of legislation. And it is a reminder that all struggles toward equality are tied. You cannot seek justice for the LGBTQ community without seeking justice for those targeted because of race or religion or gender. And so Pride Month for me is the moment where all of those things come together. It's when we celebrate the Juneteenth. Not the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, but when troops arrived in Galveston and read that declaration and enslaved Texans finally got to breathe free. We know that all struggles for equality and justice are united, and June underscores that. And the addition of the black and brown stripes to the pride flag are an important. That is why all of our struggles are united, and that is why I'm proud to see the flag raised with the addition of black and brown colors to signal and to send the very clear message that we are united for justice and equality for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadine. And now I would like to bring up for comments another good friend, State Representative Adam Hattersley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say how great it is to be here celebrating Pride Month here in Tampa. And it's an honor to live right here in Hillsborough County, where everybody is inclusive and is ready to help celebrate Pride, especially with, as Nadine mentioned, the historic Supreme Court ruling really saying everybody deserves to be treated fairly and equally. Happy Pride Month, everybody, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Justice Nadine and Adam. June is widely known as Pride Month. For many, that has become synonymous with parades and festivals that draw millions to celebrate advancements in LGBTQ protections, a time to celebrate our diversity and inclusion. But in fact, Pride is a commemoration of a flashpoint in history, a street protest that grew from LGBTQ patrons of the Stonewall Inn bar in New York City, led in part by trans people of color who fought back against police. It was commonplace 50 years ago for police to harass and arrest people for no other reason than their presence in Greenwich Village, in that club that served the LGBTQ community. For 6 days, police and a growing swell of protesters clashed in the streets. More than 5 decades later, Stonewall is still celebrated as a time when the community said enough is enough and intensified the work of securing equality under the law. Today, Pride Month arrives as people once again have taken to the street in response to injustice. The death of George Floyd has drawn widespread condemnation, including from within law enforcement. Those searing images became a catalyst for nationwide demonstrations, and they continue today and are fueled by a deeper pain, a long-standing grievance with which we all must grapple. I stand here as a 60-year-old woman who has benefited for those who stood up at Stonewall when I was only 10 years old. I also stand here as someone who has proudly worn the uniform of a police officer and as a police chief. Throughout my career, I worked hard to serve and lead in a manner that demonstrated my commitment to inclusion and respect for all. I've lived up to that standard often, and at times I've fallen short. 5 years ago, I apologized for an initiative that occurred under my leadership. I apologize because I listened and came to understand how the public caused tension, how that tactic caused tension and distrust in the very neighborhoods that we were trying to protect. Now, days of street protests are unfolding in our city. Protesters have every right to take to the streets and express their grief, frustration, and anger. And their First Amendment rights deserve full protection. As a career law enforcement officer, and now as mayor of the city of Tampa, to all of our community members, I see the events unfolding as a mental split screen for me. I'm listening to the anguish and the outrage, the anger of protesters who see in George Floyd the long history of contentious relationships with the police. A nation where the mere utterance of the phrase "Black Lives Matter" is often met with anger and pushback. On the other screen, I see my law enforcement family, many of whom I served with on patrol and as a police chief. I see people who have risked their lives to save a stranger, who've reached into their own pockets to buy something for a victim, to help victims of crime and to help even strangers out on the street. I've seen good, honorable, and caring, decent men and women who embody what it means to protect and serve. So how do I reconcile both of these pictures? I believe we all have to listen beyond our own story. I believe police officers across the country are placed in impossible positions. position of navigating the failure in changes that were designed to increase accountability, transparency, and communication between officers and the community that they serve. Every profession has within its ranks some who do not meet the standard of conduct. Those few in policing who abuse their power, inflict harm when force was not needed, humiliate and provoke, not only fail the community, they place their fellow officers in greater danger by destroying that trust, creating resentment, and igniting rage. I'm proud of the policies our police department has adopted to de-escalate and provide accountability. Policies that are often touted as national best standards. But I know that policies are not enough. Cultures within police departments have had to change over the years. There was a time when black people were not permitted to serve, a time when women were barred, and when gay people need not apply unless they hid their identity. The culture of policing has shifted. Today, I look at protesters and I know their grievances and the history is real. We as a society must change the way we address community safety, not just with arrests, but with real justice, with an investment in services that relieve police of the roles they were never intended to play and of which they are not adequately trained or equipped to handle. And I hope that those who see Tampa police officers will know the men and women that I know. Decent, brave, caring professionals who have dedicated their lives to serving. Our community. Let's see the common humanity and work together.